In just one short week, the feel-good highs of our 4-0 week have come crashing down to reality. We will touch base on the state of our football clubs, as well as go around the league and discuss the NFL playoff hunt. It's the Next Man Up Week 15 recap, and it all starts now.
Merry Christmas, I don't want to fight tonight with. Merry Christmas, I don't want to fight tonight. Merry Christmas, I don't want to fight tonight. Merry Christmas, I don't want to fight tonight with you.
All right. Well, for starters, before we get to the dramatic twist in our beloved teams, I want to make sure we send the biggest heartfelt congratulations to the one member of the Next Man Up team who is not with us today, to Johnny P, who got engaged this past weekend. Way to go, Johnny. And his beautiful fiance, Ashley. So wish you guys the best. Maybe this will mark a new era in Bears football. I think it's possible. But with me today, I got Chris and Nicky, but I will start because obviously it's kind of a weird feeling right now for Giants fans as, the DeVito insanity phase, I guess, has died down a bit, however you want to quantify it. And I just want to say this because obviously you're in the game. Briefly about the game. You're in the game 7-6. You're thinking at halftime, even though your quarterback's in concussion protocol, your kicker blew a hammy on the opening kickoff, and your punter with a taped-up quad is kicking for you. Even though they have all these things going for you, you're thinking it's a one-point game and that DeVito's going to be fine and that you're going to get back into the mix. And unfortunately, the Saints just had their way. Offense had nothing going. I was a little disturbed that defensively we kept allowing Carr for the middle of the field because I don't even think he looks at the sideline. I think he kind of keeps things, straight at the post for all his throws. Jimmy Graham getting another touchdown, just kind of what he does with Derek Carr.
I completely forgot Jimmy Graham was still in the league, let alone back on the Saints, until I saw him score another touchdown.
He's only in here to catch touchdowns, apparently.
Surprised too. It was like, wait, he exists still.
Yes, and every catch he's had is a touchdown. Like that's the only thing he's there to do. But he obviously has that basketball player background, and those red zone targets are so crucial for somebody like that. It's kind of what the Giants were hoping to get with Waller, but obviously we didn't get that. So thoughts on DeVito is that I don't think it's really on him, even though it wasn't a great game offensively from really anybody. 9 carries for 14 yards for Saquon or something along those hideous lines, similar to, what we saw from Derrick Henry, Bijan Robinson, these big time running backs just not getting the volume or the numbers that they're supposed to be getting when running the football. Part of that's play calling. Part of that's a good game plan from the Saints. But
that Saints defense feasted. They really had such a great game plan, whether it was scheme or game plan or just completely just outmatching everything that the Giants are trying to do offensively. They got to DeVito a lot. They clearly got to Barkley a lot. He really didn't stand a chance trying to get out of the backfield. I mean, anything that the Giants did, the Saints were more than ready to do. They gave the hands right back at them. Almost every time that they touched DeVito, they were coming up like this every single time.
And that's exactly what I wanted to say.
And at the same time, if any player that does something, whether it's Justin Jefferson with the gritty, anyone who does something that is known around the league, you have to be prepared to have it thrown back in your face one way or another, whether it's just something as simple as this, something like that's a dance.
Well, it's a scummy thing to do no matter the circumstance. Like I remember Carlos Rogers doing the Victor Cruz salsa. Like that's a nice heartfelt thing he does for his grandmother, and you're mocking it. DeVito is an Italian guy, is a family thing he's doing, and you're mocking it. To me, that says more about you than it does about DeVito or Cruz. But you're right, it happens all the time. People want to troll, especially when they're getting too big, and that's what I wanted to talk about. New York can sometimes beat things to death, beat a dead horse even further into oblivion, which is exactly what happened with Tommy DeVito and his 3-game winning streak. Listen, to go from 2-8 to 5-8, wow, it's something you got to keep your eye on. But right now, Giants fans are divided, and it's frustrating because there's a majority of fans, or I don't know about the majority, but a lot of fans definitely just think that we should lose every game we play. We need to tank for a better draft pick. We need to resolve this quarterback situation, blah, yada, yada, yada. There's some Giants fans that believe Daniel Jones will get healthy and reclaim the job and be fine, in that regard. And that very well may happen. He is paid to be that guy. And that is exactly what we
Absolutely. And
expected him to
that's
be.
why they gave him the extension they gave him. And they already said when he's healthy next year, he's coming back and he's going to be the starter. They've
They said
already
it.
been
They
on the
said
record
it.
saying that.
Yes. But they did say it kind of before the DeVito stuff started to really heat up. Obviously, yes, I do think the GM would say the same thing again. I think Shane would say the same thing again. But then there's also the Giant fans out there that think DeVito might be better than Jones, or better, or the best thing we've seen. And if you're talking about this season alone, he has been the best thing we've seen. So it's a little complicated, but I had to just part ways with a former colleague. I actually blocked somebody because, and this is, nothing, it wasn't personal anymore, but basically it's an old colleague who basically has been trying to tell me for years that Daniel Jones is the worst thing to ever exist in the history of people breathing. So obviously he's one of those negative folks, and nothing really can make them happy. And you kind of just want to see them be wrong. Like when Jones won the playoff game, I was like, heh, 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 heh. Like I couldn't help it. I was in his face a little bit. But then obviously he waited and he waited and he waited and he came back and he was like, this is everything I said. I know everything for 6 years. And I was like, you know what, dude, have a nice life, because I don't need you. I don't need that. You know what I mean? And it's nothing personal. We don't need to be having a war back and forth. He actually had me go back and listen to the words I said on the Jones contract. He says, you were wrong. You're wrong. I was like, I'm literally listening to a show I recorded in March, and I actually agree with myself more now than I did then. So I stand by everything I've said on Daniel Jones, everything I've said on the Giants. Right now, I will say this. I want to see what DeVito does against the Eagles. I do. If he does something special against the Eagles, that will have my attention. And then, obviously, maybe it will be a discussion. But odds are, if Jones is healthy, week one, $30.5 million, discussion over, it will be Jones's team. But and Giants fans, stay positive. It's okay. We don't have to just tank for everything.
And at the same time, who did the Giants beat in that 3-game span? Were there
inferior
really any
opponents? Washington,
exactly? So
New England.
So did they really throw any huge upsets in the mix? Like, if they had beaten the Cowboys in that span,
the
or
Packers,
they had
I think on Monday Night Football was the biggest one, because they don't normally win on prime time, and the Packers needed that game. And similarly,
the Packers
had
been looking good at the same time. But if they had beaten one of those premier opponents, whether it be the Cowboys, Eagles, or even if they had beaten like someone like the Niners, or they had like the Ravens or one of those big teams mixed in there, then you maybe have a case to say, oh well, DeVito's the best thing. Sure, this year, Jones didn't look great when he was playing. They were a little more conservative.
But the O-line is also totally different now. You have to be objective about the situation.
Exactly. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. So, so for someone to
go
say,
ahead, Nicky.
Sorry, Nicky.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, and you see this with quarterbacks in the NFL all the time too. There's those backups that step up to the plate and all of a sudden go on these kind of mythical streaks for a little bit, and some can turn into something great, like Brock Purdy is in San Francisco right now. And some have these little momentary spurts. Maybe this is a momentary spurt for Tommy DeVito, or maybe this does really turn some heads towards him, and he can make a decent, comfortable career out of this for himself for the long haul.
Absolutely. There's no reason to think any team. There's no reason to think he can't use this to propel his backup status, his contract status. It's all good. It's all a good story still, even if he's the starter next year.
And we've seen two of them this year between DeVito and Josh Dobbs, because Josh Dobbs goes to Minnesota, has 3 great games, throws 4 picks against Chicago. He doesn't look the same, and then he gets demoted all the way down to 3rd string. So, I mean, they go through these spurts. Unless you're one of those top-tier quarterbacks that's doing it week in and week out for a long period of time, a lot of times it is just a flash in the pan. So you can't really just put too much investment into it and say it's not a big enough sample size to say whether this is the guy or not, because that's why it's hard to write off a rookie. That's why it's hard to buy completely into a rookie. You really just have to just get the larger sample size and really see them against the opponents that you need to see them against. So
these 3 games are huge for that.
Exactly.
Because you got the Eagles, the Rams, and then the Eagles again.
Yeah, you got the Eagles twice, and the Rams, who are definitely very much in the mix right now because they've been playing some very
Rams
good
are
football.
looking pretty strong in the NFC West, let me tell you. So, yeah, I think this will be the biggest challenges for DeVito. Maybe we'll learn something new. Maybe we won't. But honestly, that Saints game felt like, whether it was Jones, Taylor, or DeVito, same result. That's what it felt like. They completely outplayed us. So, and we even saw a little bit of Taylor, but that's it for the Giants. Obviously, the Jets, what happened? Obviously it wasn't quite the fail Mary from Black Friday the last time they played Miami, but it was arguably even worse. Did you guys start believing in Wilson a little too much? It's that New York thing again. Everybody's like, Wilson's good. Wilson's good. He can actually do it. If they let him call, as Aaron Rodgers, he was calling the plays. He was good the entire time. And it's like that meme with the Always Sunny in Philadelphia Charlie guy. It's like that's what everybody becomes.
And that is basically what the Zach Wilson experience has been. It's you get one of the best performances of someone's career followed by a complete dud. Granted, very similar to the Giants when you talk about the offensive line. The offensive line gave him zero time to do anything, gave the running game zero time to develop. Bradley Chubb, he might as well have just had nobody in front of him. He had a free pass to the quarterback almost every play. He looked like he was having a career game. And if you were picking Defensive Player of the Year based on one game alone, Bradley Chubb, congratulations, you just won Defensive Player of the Year, because I thought that he looked like the best defensive player I've seen in my entire lifetime, because it looked like he was completely outmatching anyone that he went up against. Mekhi Becton looked like he was about 70 years old. He looked incredibly sluggish and just got beat just nonstop. It was just
he's been really disappointing. I think out of everybody on the line, like you were expecting a lot more out of Becton.
Exactly. He's someone that we had higher hopes for, especially being a first round talent. The rookie season that he had was very good. It was very promising. He had some knee injuries that definitely set him back. And I think that they're finally rearing their ugly heads of what the long-term effects of those are. And as I've said multiple times, this week officially it's been made official, public.
Finally. Thanks to this Pat McAfee Rodgers thing that you get every week.
And also what I've been saying for weeks is that Rodgers is not going to play. He shouldn't play. And guess what? He's not going to play officially. Robert Saleh said he's not going to play. He's
Why is it official now?
Because they're out of the playoff contention.
Ding, ding, ding.
They are completely eliminated from contention, and he never should have played in the first place, whether they were out of contention or not. I've gone back and forth with multiple people on this, like, oh well, he should play. He's the best quarterback on the team, sure, but he's also 40 years old. Now
he said he wants to play 2 years still,
and now he says he's going to get at least 2 years out of him. But that's also
it's out of guilt. That's why
it may be out of guilt. B, it feels like it's almost like a hostage situation already, because it's like you held that carrot out this entire season of that false hope of, you got to be quicker than that. You got to be quicker than that. I might come back. It eliminated any sort of contingency plans that could have been made. The team was held hostage. He's playing GM, coach, and owner all at the same time. He's playing quarterback, even though he's not playing. He's playing offensive coordinator. He's playing head coach. He's playing GM. He's playing owner. And it's just like, you have one job. Everyone needs to kind of nut up, grow a pair, and put him in his place and say, you're be a grown man, and say,
the holidays. Take it easy.
I don't care. And say, this is your job. This is what you're getting paid to do. This is what you're supposed to be getting paid to do. This is what your position within this organization is. And this is your place. They gave him too much power from the jump. They're still giving him too much power despite him not even playing. And this is what it gets you. This is where it has gotten them, and this is where it is going to keep them for the foreseeable future, unless he does actually play and get something successful out of it.
And it seems like Rodgers has been, not just this year with the Jets, but really the past couple of years we saw when he was in Green Bay too. He's been a big attention hog. Everyone look at me. I need to be the center of attention at all times. And I think this is something where he's kind of worried, like, oh no, if I'm out too long, people are going to forget about me and everything. And you're absolutely right. He just needs to shut up, and he needs to not just take one step. He's got to take a couple of steps back and humble himself, or maybe take some other sort of horse tranquilizer that really humbles him. And I don't know. Someone's got to slap him across the face a couple of times and really put him in his place, because he's being a brat. He's being a bratty child is what it is.
And basically what they've said is that the entire staff is getting they're getting a do-over year, because they didn't really get to do what they were they didn't get to see what they could do with what they were supposed to have this year. So they're getting a year with Rodgers
Just
So
to
this
reiterate, though,
the coaching staff is still going to be there next year, including
yes.
Nathaniel can't hack it.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. It's 3 games to go. We'll see. I'm not going to say that's official yet. We don't know. Obviously, that's the feeling now, and I've heard that's the
I
pulse.
believe it's been said at least. I
Rod,
believe it's been said somewhere, whether it was Rogers saying that they're all
dude,
staying, they
it don't
plan on
matter.
keeping them
Like if you
around,
get
whether it's
shut,
Woody, whether it's whatever.
what if you have
But
another performance like Miami for 3 straight weeks? People get fired after that. Like it doesn't matter what people say now. So I
so
agree that
basically,
that's probably the pulse.
where we are on the meter, on the hot seat, the seat is
Lukewarm.
maybe lukewarm at best.
Yeah.
At hottest, but it's definitely not on fire. It's maybe on, like, if you're turning your burner up, it's maybe on a 2. It's
Right.
really not turned up. I don't think anyone's
To
job is in
summarize.
jeopardy as we stand.
Yeah.
But
I can't believe I'm going to do this. Go ahead.
There's definitely going to be a very short leash if things don't progress next year for
Right.
sure.
Now, I can't believe I'm going to do this because I've been holding my tongue. But between grow a pair and he's a brat, I'm actually going to defend Aaron Rodgers a little bit. Obviously, I've had my qualms in the Rodgers world. Everything you guys have kind of pointed out. I can already visualize him in 2026 having his own podcast where he propels conspiracy theories and creates people to go, down these rabbit holes, for lack of a better term, of thinking of things that, may or may not be true or whatever. But I just want to say this, that I almost don't blame Woody Johnson, almost, for giving Aaron Rodgers the keys to the entire organization, because that's what happened. That's what I told you guys from the start. Nobody wanted to hear it, but that's because it's new. It's fresh. You want something to be positive. I understand that. Like, you don't want to just immediately go, this is bad. But if your GM is handcuffed, if your offensive coordinator is basically picked out by a quarterback who, by the way, you could have signed a guy like Baker Mayfield for cheap, and maybe he would have been at least fun and feisty. And I kind of think maybe his personality would do well in New York. Obviously, his potential is not as good as a healthy Aaron Rodgers, but he's also younger. There's problems, and he wouldn't have the audacity, even though he's number 1 pick, he wouldn't have the audacity to completely control your team. So I just want to say I don't blame the official. I mean, I don't blame Woody Johnson for doing this because it's been so long, and we've suffered. Jets fans have suffered for so long that you almost want to say, give the player the control, especially if Rodgers had some influence on that second half in Houston, which it seemed like he did. So I don't know where he was this week. I don't know what the hell happened this week, but definitely these distractions have hurt the team. And
he was on the sideline.
His distractions have absolutely hurt the team. And if he wants to be and if bringing everybody back is his way of being accountable, then I understand that. But Saleh had, after a 30-0 loss to a division rival who, didn't even have Tyreek Hill, that is not a good look at all. I think that, absolutely could result in some potential hot seats. I would fire Hackett. I'm sorry, Rodgers. Like, as much as you love him, like, you're 32nd in offense. 32nd.
Yeah. The scheme has been just too predictable. And I've said I'm not going to beat a dead horse because it's 3rd and 2, run it up the middle. 2nd and 19, run it up the middle. I could tell you what they're going to do. Everyone could tell you what they're going to do. Yeah. It's just so predictable. It's very conservative.
It's boring.
Personnel wise, if they go into next year without focusing 100% on building up the offensive wall, offensive line, getting another receiver to complement Garrett Wilson, then we're not going to see much more than maybe 6 or 7 wins next year.
No doubt.
That's looking at next year.
Now, Nicky, obviously, Patriots might have had the worst luck this year out of all of our teams, but he's put up a little bit of a fight against Kansas City. Almost covered, half a point away from covering. I was hoping you guys could at least keep it interesting. You made Taylor Swift curse, even though that was entirely because of Kelsey's flopping. But what do you think Patriots fans, I'm sure many of them are like Giants fans that just want to completely erase the season and tank and, start over a clean slate. But what do you want to see personally? How should this season end with Bill Belichick, and what is the overall pulse of the fan base to wrap up this season and going into next season?
I mean, if you see Tim Robinson behind me here, from this little clip, it's pretty much the Patriots offense this whole year, especially with Bailey Crappy going into the second half of each game. Is
Ouch! You guys have been so
I
mean. It's the holidays.
Oh
Enough.
no,
Come
yeah,
on.
it's I've come up with this name for him after the game, and
Oh,
I'm sticking with it. But it's I didn't
getting cold.
do finish the rest of the sentence.
Sorry.
It's been the same old song and dance for them this year. I think, yeah, definitely we Patriots fans want to erase this season from our minds. It's but not taking away from Bill Belichick's overall legacy, because in 24 years, really 21 out of those 24 years he's been here, he's brought a lot of joy to New England, a lot of really good memories for us. Again, as I said last week, I'm not believing any of the rumors about Belichick until there is something official, whether it's at the end of this year or at
Right.
the end of
I don't
next
expect you
year.
to believe the rumors, but what do you think will happen?
I don't know. I don't know what to
The
think about it at
Chargers
this point.
seems like writing's on the wall there. I mean, if it's kind of like almost like you're almost retired, right? You're going out somewhere warm. You
Yeah,
got the boat
it's
scene.
but
He's got to
I
have
don't
somewhere
even
with a harbor, right?
I don't even see. I mean, yeah, he can bring seven ring, or is it seven rings, eight rings, whatever it is. He can
Oh,
bring that over to whatever coast. But I don't see the Chargers as another destination for him. I think that's just they're just talking it, especially because of
because
how
they need
that
a
coaching
total rebuild.
situation there
Yeah.
has been, and they finally fired their coach after getting destroyed 10 times over by Vegas
Right.
this past week.
Right.
What was good about the Chiefs game is that the defense once again picked up the slack the offense left on the field. Both Jelani Tavai, thanks to Kadarius Toney, got an interception, as well as Marte Mapu
Benched Tony.
getting his first one, ripping it out of the arms of the other tight end of the Chiefs. Christian Barmore, who I've been high on since they drafted him 3-4 years ago. I think he could be their next current Vince Wilfork. Got a
Ooh.
sack. So they got some guys in Mahomes' kitchen last week, and he didn't play as pissed off as I thought he was going to play. Probably because he realized he was wrong for his comments, and he got fined $50,000 as a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the receivers for the Chiefs too have been the big problem for him all year long. And but I did like what the commentator said about Rashee Rice, of him becoming more Patrick friendly. So now it seems like he's got another option aside from Travis Kelce. But I mean, as far as Patriots rest of this season, I don't care what they do at quarterback. I mean, they just picked up Nathan Rourke off waivers from Jacksonville. He was
You
the
got to at least be
2020.
eyeing that last game too.
Yeah,
That
he was 2022 most outstanding
22.
Canadian in the CFL with the
There
BC
you go.
Lions. So, and a guy who, when I watched him play in the CFL, could actually play a consistent game from start to finish all the way through, something we haven't seen from Crappy or Jones this entire year. So, just going with
Said it
the
again.
stick,
He doubled down on Crappy. This poor
throw it at the
guy.
wall, see
What
what
is Billy
happens.
Zappi supposed to be? I mean, I'm
He is.
sorry. Like,
I I don't know. I want them to trade him at the draft and see if they can get, but I don't think you're getting anything of value with him. So he's probably still going to be in the mix for
no.
quarterback next year. I also want to note last week when I said try throwing Malik Cunningham out there, either around the time we were recording or the day after when the episode was released. Malik Cunningham was signed off the Patriots practice roster by the Baltimore Ravens. So unfortunately, he's no
Mm-hmm.
longer with the Patriots.
Thank you for
But
acknowledging that.
yeah, definitely want to wish him the absolute best in his future in pro football, because he deserves it.
Listen, I think our teams kind of all have the same. Is it the O line? Is it the quarterback discussion? Right. Obviously, Mac Jones has had a harder time. Right.
Speaking of the O line too, for the Patriots, we just lost Cole Strange for the rest of the year with a
There you
knee
go.
injury that he sustained this past week. So that's another thing going for us.
In the case of the Giants, they get sacked more than anybody. Whether it's Jones, Taylor, or DeVito, the sacks are insane. And obviously, you see a stat like that, you think you got a problem with O line. And I think the first quarter of the season they were unhealthy, in complete disarray, and it all happened on that stupid block kick that Thomas should have never been on the field for. I get it. And then the tush push a few weeks later with Schmitz, we literally lost half our team because of a block kick and a tush push, 2 plays. So I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just saying, like, I always wondered, like, can you compensate for a mediocre O line when you have elite wide receiver play? I believe you can. I believe that's arguably more important because we live in a time where you can't even touch receivers. Brady's been going off about this, especially there's that gentleman on the Steelers who is now suspended indefinitely.
Casey.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in agreement with everything the commissioner's been saying lately, where he said we're not going to apologize to officials for making the correct. We're not going to fine officials for making the correct call. Was what he said to the Chiefs. Basically, best way to get him to say shut up. And then he fined the Chiefs. And then, of course, this explanation was like, this is a repeat offender who is not changing. Like, this is multiple times now that you have knocked people out, hurt people. Pittman was not in good shape from that hit. And if you're not going to adjust based on the rules, you will be suspended indefinitely without pay. That, to me, makes total sense. But
see, and I was at first I was under the impression that this wasn't that Casey wasn't a repeat offender. I thought this was his first offense on this. But now with you saying, I mean, and I
he's had a few in his career.
Okay, so at first I kind of thought that if he wasn't a repeat offender, that this was too harsh of a penalty for him.
Right.
But seeing that,
agreed.
But then also comparing that to, I want to bridge that to Draymond Green in the NBA for his suspension.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Of being indefinite. At first indefinite, but now saying 3 weeks. I think they're being too lenient with him because I think Green needs to be suspended without pay. Minimum 2 to 3 months, maximum for the rest of the year, because he just can't have counseling and other qualifications or criteria he has to meet. He needs to be taught a serious lesson, and unfortunately, it's too late now for the NBA to dish out some sort of serious punishment where he's been a notorious repeat offender throughout his entire career. And he needs to be shown some sort of serious punishment for his actions.
Well, I mean, okay. Real quick on Green, because we'll go there. Why not? I obviously want to get to the AFC, NFC playoff picture, but to wrap up our team talk, let's have a little mini Draymond Green discussion because it is national news. This guy is literally flailing his limbs like crazy anytime anybody's near him, and it's been going on for quite a while. We've seen him stomp on people.
It all started with splitting the uprights of Steven Adams.
We've seen him split the uprights of Steven Adams, multiple guys. We've seen him stomp on people on the ground. We've seen him cross the line from, a little rough to downright psychotic.
Punched his own teammate in the face in practice.
It reminds me of Chris Simon on the New York Islanders. Or he was on multiple teams, but there was a moment where he just lost it. Like, he just took his stick and hit someone on the Rangers in the face because he wasn't, he got hit and he was hurt and he's like, he just went into psychotic animal mode. And that's what I think is happening with Draymond Green. He's going into psychotic animal mode. And yeah, he's a part of their legacy. Obviously, he's not the level of talent that, Steph or Clay have brought to the table, or Andre Iguodala, but when he was a little younger. He knows his role, and that's why he's so important to their team. But his role is to be a nudge. His role is to be a pest. His role is to because they're not really a defensive team, but he can make them more physical because he's actually limited in size and uses this as an advantage. I'm not making an excuse for him. The guy's got problems. He runs his mouth like crazy. He's like Aaron Rodgers on steroids if we're talking about people running their mouth. So I think a longer suspension and a larger fine that he got was pretty appropriate, but I don't know. Maybe he needs a heftier suspension, maybe like a quarter of the season or something like that. I don't know.
And going back to the Casey incident too, I'm wearing a Tom Brady shirt right now, which I gotta disagree with what he said on this being the quarterback putting the receiver in that kind of predicament. I don't think it was necessarily it wasn't Gardner Minshew's fault that Pittman was put in that predicament.
I saw a comment on there that said, "How many times did you kill Julian Edelman, you fraud?"
Edelman was a whole different breed too. Yeah, he put himself through punishment willingly every time. But nevertheless, it's not something where each quarterback is trying to go out and just chuck it up and put him in difficult situations where a guy like Pittman can make that difficult catch. Absolutely.
Right.
But if you're going to have, you're subject to those kind of hits, whatever position. But again, I love Tom Brady. He's my all-time favorite football player, but I got to disagree with him on his criticism of that play.
I think he's
at least from that point of view.
My opinion is he's 100% correct. He's just doubling down on what he said previously. You want to talk about that individual play and you want to give Minshew a break? I hear you there. Minshew's a backup quarterback. Like, let's be honest. Like, as well as he's playing, he's doing way better than most backup quarterbacks. We should not be critical of Minshew. So I agree with you there. But in the case of Brady's point, a lot of mediocrity in the league, a lot of quarterbacks not learning things. I think he's really being more critical of league structures than he is of quarterbacks because the practices are not the same. The amount of protection that the players get is obviously something they're focusing on, but not exactly focusing on the reps needed for the players to make sure their guys are protected. So I completely agree with them on that stance, but on that individual play, I agree with you. So I agree with everybody. It's the holidays. I love everybody.
It's nothing like that to bring everybody together on one.
Yeah, and let's Chris. I want to know from you. We're looking at the AFC. It's crazy. Okay, it's exactly what the NFL wants. So Brady can complain all he wants, but this, it's called the NFL will call it parity, but you can call it mediocrity. You got the Bills, Broncos, Raiders, Bengals, Browns, Jags, Colts, and Texans in the mix. Obviously, Texans are trending downwards. Jaguars are trending downwards. Bengals are hanging around, but they continue to lose tiebreakers. Raiders, one week they lose 3-0. The next week they're scoring 63 points. The Broncos, I don't know what to think of the Broncos, and the Bills are still the same damn Bills we've always seen. So, in your opinion, who's a pretender there, and who's a contender?
I mean, if you ask me, I don't know if I believe in Cincinnati. I know that they made that comeback and they won in overtime. I don't see them really making the push behind Jake Browning. I just don't see them having that same sort of magic they would have had if Burrow was still healthy. If Burrow's there, it's a completely different team.
If this were New York, they'd say Browning over Burrow. Let's replace him. He's better.
And they just lost Jamar Chase. He has an AC sprain. So I mean, you got to think that they're probably going to be starting to trend downwards. They're missing their top playmaker. They're working with the backup quarterback who's been playing exceptionally well, all things considered. But once again, we're at like that 3-game mark. Is he going to start trending downwards like the other guys did after their 3 games? Time will tell.
What do you think of Denver?
Denver is such a weird team because they started out as one of the worst teams in the league. They have 70 points put up against them one week, and now we're talking about them potentially making the playoffs. Sean Payton has proven that he can get things done when he needs to. Russell Wilson has proven that he can get things done when he needs to. They have some weird dynamic going on between the two of them. He yelled at him for an offensive offsides, which first off, offensive offsides, I probably heard it called more in the last 2 weeks than I have ever since the Patrick Mahomes blow up, probably because almost to make a point, they told the refs, hey, make sure you make it very well known that we're calling this penalty because we don't want to look like fools.
We don't want the Chiefs to continue to complain.
But there was a weird blow up. It's like, that wasn't Mahomes' fault that the offensive lineman was up a little bit. Like, everyone should kind of look left and right. Oh, wait, I'm up a little bit. I got to move back a little bit. So, I mean, it was a weird blow up where he was yelling at Russ for no reason. I feel like the marriage there just hasn't worked since the beginning. They've almost been winning in spite of each other in a way. They don't have
to like each other.
No, I know, but I mean, you want to have some sort of chemistry between your one of your top players and your coach.
Well, Russ is weird. Russ is a unique guy. And Pete Carroll and him had a unique relationship, and he allowed Russ to be Russ. But truthfully, in that Super Bowl, I've heard it was a Tyrod Taylor type situation. It was an audible call by the quarterback on its own in that Super Bowl he screwed up. So in that case, a Daboll response or a Peyton response might have actually been more appropriate for keeping the locker room together because they were pissed. Marshawn Lynch was pissed. And the entire team was pissed. Sherman was pissed. So you can't always be Susie Sunshine with your quarterback. Sometimes they got to get yelled at, and I'm okay with Peyton yelling at.
No, but when it comes to the playoff teams for the AFC, I mean, as you said, Jacksonville, they're trending downward. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is crap. Trevor Lawrence has not been himself. He probably should have taken a week or two to rest his ankle. He's probably pushing himself a little too hard. I think that's really going to wind up biting them in the ass. And guess what? I'm picking the Colts to wind up winning the AFC South right now.
Ooh,
I think that they're trending upwards. I think Shane Steichen has done a great job coaching that team. I think that they have really excelled against all the adversity against them, whether it's Anthony Richardson going down, Jonathan Taylor going down.
So many injuries.
They have all these injuries, but guess what? They're winning games. They're playing their asses off.
Right.
They're playing so well.
Love that they're not a tank team. They next man up mentality. Literally,
they very well could have laid down and died after week 5 when Richardson went down. But Minshew is the perfect guy that you want to have in that situation. And he's been playing exactly how you want that backup quarterback to play. He has that swag. He has that sort of chip on his shoulder.
That's what the Giants paid Taylor to be. And they would have been better off with somebody like Minshew.
And I also said I wanted the Jets to sign Minshew when they needed a backup quarterback.
Prediction. I want to get Nicky's take on some NFC things.
But I said
quick.
I would love to see the Colts make the run and take over the AFC South, especially with the other teams trending downwards. And I think Buffalo winds up nabbing one of the wild card spots.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really think they
Buffalo
do.
will go to the Super Bowl. Buffalo will take
Buffalo
over
very
the
well
AFC.
can, and I think that between
That's what I
Miami
think.
and Baltimore, whoever wins that head-to-head matchup is going to wind up as the 1 seed in the end.
I like it. I like it a lot, Chris. Thank you. Hot take, Tyrod Taylor, Jets next season. I see it happening because, you need a backup, doesn't have to move.
He doesn't
He's
have
a
to
good
move.
guy to have around Rodgers. I don't think the Jets should do it, but I can see it happening. Now, Nicky, NFC, same question, same scenario. We got the Rams. The Rams looking hot. The Seahawks coming off a big win over the Eagles. The Vikings hanging around, winning weird games. The Bucks making a statement. The Saints making a statement. And even the Falcons, after one of the most embarrassing losses of the season against the Carolina Panthers, still in the picture. Who is for real there in the NFC? Who do you like the most?
I think definitely the Rams and the Seahawks are for real in the NFC. I think that number 1 seed out of the West, at least who's winning that division, it might come down to the final week of the year. While the Seahawks have had some weird games too, where they've either balled out but still lost, or they've come in and just not been themselves after balling out a previous week or a couple weeks in a row beforehand. I think the Seahawks are still in the mix with this thing. Like you guys said earlier too, the Rams have been playing great football. That's total night and day from what they were last year, especially. But I think
could they shock a team like San Francisco? Could they do that? Obviously division rival, because it's really, you got the Eagles, you got the 49ers, and you got the Cowboys. Those are the top NFC teams.
Between the Rams and the Seahawks, I think the Rams have the edge in shocking the 49ers. So 49ers obviously running away with that division. But as far as another wild card team to come out of that division, I think that those two of those wild card spots go to both the Rams and the Seahawks in the end. I think that's it. Falcons, I'm not buying them.
No, of course not.
But they've had such a weird year too. And it took them so long.
They can't win on the road. Can't do anything on the road. It took them so long to use
Bijan Robinson in the way they should have been using him this whole year.
And then last week against the Panthers does diddly poo, nothing.
Exactly.
And Ritter is terrible.
It's weird. Bucks, I don't see the Bucks hanging around in the playoffs.
That's where I think they're the best team in the NFC South, but I think whoever wins the NFC South is not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's that. I mean, it's gonna. I think it's coming down between them and the Saints. For that, but as far as that, the edge between the two, maybe the Bucks because they've been more consistent than the Saints, but I'm not sure.
My non-official prediction, I just talked myself into it. Bills-Rams Super Bowl. Nothing but upsets and confusion. I obviously will probably change this as we get closer to the big day and the playoff seedings are more in tight. But right now,
I'm still sticking with my Ravens preseason prediction just because it's looking more and more likely.
Love that for you. But thanks so much for tuning in. Obviously, this was our final show before the holidays, so we are almost there, gentlemen. 2 more games before we've done an entire season of recaps. That's the goal of ours, and we need to pat ourselves on the back when we get that done. So thanks so much for listening. And, of course, Johnny Fields, he made the pass. He dropped the Hail Mary. Mooney, come on. Can we keep Justin Fields, please? What more is he supposed to do? He put a perfect Hail Mary on the money. I don't know what to say. Johnny's upset, but we'll talk to him next week. As always, be well and happy holidays.
Howdy ho, folks.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for your support of both Next Man Up and Down the Rabbit Hole Media. If you enjoyed this show and want to hear other shows or want to learn more about our content, please check out all of our links and information on dtrabbithole.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on Spotify. Thank you so much for your support. And if nothing else, just tell a friend. We really appreciate your time. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and as always, be well.